Matt Rhule just wrapped up his press conference with the media discussing the game this week, what we need to see in order to have success the rest of the season, some notes from practice this week, one key player in particular who will likely be out versus Houston Christian. We'll talk about who he is, who's going to step up in his absence, whether or not he could miss some time going forward, and so much more. A couple breakout players of both offense and defense, Matt Rhule's opinions on the brand new transfer portal, the pros, the cons. We'll talk about Dylan Raiola and Dayton Raiola, a massive question I have for you. And last but not least, we'll talk about two bits of recruiting news that dropped today. A 4-star Georgia player who will be visiting this Saturday, the Huskers are trying to flip, and a 5-star corner who will be in town next Saturday versus Michigan. So really quick, you're on a good Thursday. I know I am. Hit that like button. And also, if you're a diehard Nebraska fan and you're not subscribed, what are you waiting for? For daily content talking Huskers, it's a no-brainer. It takes 2 seconds. Hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much. But without further ado, we have a lot to talk about. Want to get things started with all the press conference information. Then we'll get to my question for you, all the recruiting notes. But I want to start things off with, in my opinion, the most important thing that we learned today. Matt Rhule has disclosed that senior defensive back Malcolm Hartzog will be questionable going into the Houston Christian game with a lingering lower body injury. It didn't happen on one specific play versus Akron or against Cincinnati. It's just something he's been dealing with over these past couple days, over these past couple weeks. He is not 100%. So Matt Rhule made it clear that they're going to go into Saturday. They're going to feel it out. They're going to have him warm up. And depending on that, they're going to rule him in or out. And we'll see if he actually plays versus the Huskies. Now, giving you my information, what I've heard, what I'm expecting for Saturday, I do not expect Malcolm Hartzog to suit up just for a couple reasons. I mean, number one, you know their track record in games like this, right? In FCS ball games, you go back to last year versus Northern Iowa. If you have pretty much a scratch on you, they're not going to play you because they know they're going to get it down. They know they're going to win by 30, 40, 50 points. They're not going to risk anything. So Malcolm Hartzog, and I want to make this very clear, this should not be an issue that he has in the future, right? Again, I don't know if it's specifically a knee or an ankle, but it shouldn't be an issue going to Michigan. It shouldn't be an issue going into Michigan State. However, it becomes a huge issue if you do play him against Houston Christian. He re-injures it or aggravates it even further, and it makes it worse. And then suddenly he's actually out versus Michigan for a serious injury, or he's out versus Michigan State or out the rest of the year. So yes, he has a lingering injury right now. Yes, Jacory Barney had the exact same thing and did play last week, but they're going to be very safe with Malcolm Hartzog here, and I expect him not to play versus Houston Christian. So the big question then is, who's going to step up in his absence? Because we feel very good about the starting five in the secondary, right? You feel great about all the corners. You feel good about Hartzog. You feel good about the safeties. But once you get into the depth, right? Once you get into some of these younger guys, it becomes a little bit sketchy. There's a lot of guys who are unproven. And that's why, in my opinion, Nebraska, while we're probably worthy of winning 8, 9, 10 games, we're not yet worthy of making a run the cultural playoff. It's because from a depth standpoint, we're not necessarily there. That could change, however, against Houston Christian. Who's going to step up with Hartzog being out? I have a couple options for you. You could go to the Southern Illinois transfer, Jamarion, who's had a really good fall ball, played well versus Akron last week. Somebody who's incredibly physical, cross-trained to play both corner, nickel, safety, can tackle at a high level. He's very handsy for better or worse. Like, he's handsy. He'll poke the ball free, but he might also draw a couple pass interferences from time to time. So I'm hoping Jamarion can play. I'm hoping he can play well because he's somebody who could be a key depth piece for us this year. And in my opinion, with his upside, I expect Jamarion not only to start for us next year, but could be one of the best players on this entire team. So Jamarion is somebody I have my eyes out for. I'm looking at a guy like Larry Tarver. I've been on the Larry Tarver bandwagon for 2 years now. I think he's pound for pound one of the best man coverage players on this team. He played well in a couple of snaps versus Akron last week, so he gets a huge opportunity. What about Amari Sanders? What about Mario Buford? All of these guys are going to get reps. Who shines? That's my big question there, but Malcolm Hartzog will likely be out versus Houston Christian. Then Matt Rhule hyped up a couple players in particular. Number one, we've heard this, I think, at 3 or 4 straight press conferences. One particular name, and that's Gabe Moore. Okay, transfer from Mississippi State. Again, I'm huge on Gabe Moore, right? Again, he's always been injured. But you go back to what he did in high school. He's incredibly athletic. He's somebody who has high upside. He played a couple of times versus Akron and was a difference maker. So, again, same deal with the secondary. We're worried about the D-line depth. Gabe Moore is somebody who could change that. And he's already right now in the 3 deep. He replaced David Hoofkin. David Hoofkin is no longer on the depth chart. That's the reason is because Gabe Moore replaced him, because Gabe Moore has that upside. So, again, I'm excited to see Gabe Moore, but the coaching staff continues to hype him up. And then talked a little bit about the transfer portal window. We discussed that a couple weeks ago on the channel when that was announced. If you missed it, basically what the change is going to be, they're going to go from 2 windows to 1. The window will open up on January 2nd, and it's only going to go for 10 days instead of 1 month. And this is going to be a great change in college football. I told you guys that at the time, but Matt Rhule also talked about it. There's 2 main reasons in particular why this is good, okay, for not only Nebraska, but literally the rest of the game. Number one, having a shorter window is a lot better for tampering and just for the money in general, because we know that the longer the portal goes on, more teams get desperate. Okay, so suddenly you're going into the 3rd week, 4th week of the portal, the team that you had does not look that good, and you start calling up dudes, at Big Ten schools, SEC schools, and say, hey, we're going to pay you this amount of dollars, enter the portal, and they start tampering. Okay, that's what happened to Dante Dowdell last year. That's what happened, you could even say, to a couple other players, right? Chief Borders, potentially that happened to. Again, I don't know that one for a fact, but I know the other one for a fact. Okay, so we've seen a lot of Nebraska players get tampered with. That changes now with the window only being 10 days. The second reason why this is incredibly significant, not having a spring window means that spring games will likely come back. And Matt Rhule didn't talk about that specifically today, but that's really what's going to happen is, okay, now we only have a window in January. There's no cons of having a spring game anymore. We're going to bring that back in fall, which we need as a fan base because, I was at the spring game this past year. It was awful. It was unwatchable. The 3rd strings, the 4th stringers, we don't really want to see that too much. I'm intrigued by them, but it's mostly for the kids, right? You want to see Dylan Raiola play in the spring. You want to see some of these other receivers play. So spring game likely coming back, but Matt Rhule said there are a lot of good to it. And then last but not least, he was on Pat McAfee this morning, and I thought this was awesome by him. He talked about how Dylan Raiola not only is incredibly underappreciated nationally, but he's disrespected. And he was on ESPN. Let me make that very clear. He was on ESPN, and he said that the media, including ESPN, disrespects Dylan. Whenever they talk about Dylan, it's not because, Dylan's playing well, and watch out for Dylan. It's because, Dylan Raiola looks a lot like Patrick Mahomes. And, Dylan kids, they throw him under the bus. They make every single insult in the book. And Matt Rhule simply said, we can't do this anymore, right? If you're going to talk about Dylan, you're going to talk about him as one of the best quarterbacks in college football because that's how he's playing right now. Okay, he's only going into his 16th game, and he's playing at a level that we haven't seen in a long time, right? Not only with his skills, but with his IQ, his processing, his pocket presence, his progressions. So I love that he said that on ESPN, a network that constantly not only disrespects the Big Ten, but specifically disrespects Nebraska. He said that to Mr. Pat McAfee. All right, before I get into the recruiting notes, I have a question for you, and I want you to answer this question in the comment section. I know I'm going to get people who disagree with me. That's okay. But I have a question around Emmett Johnson, okay? If you were the coach, and we know, and I want to make this very clear, Emmett Johnson will play this week. But my question is, if you were the coach and you're trying to figure out this running back depth, and it's very clear that it's wide open and there's not really a guy there behind Emmett, would you play EJ this week? Okay. Would you let him play for a half, maybe the entire game, or would you not play him at all and allow these younger running backs to get reps? Because that's the most important thing for their development. Okay. That's my question to you. Okay. And I'll make it clear, EJ will play. And it is important that a running back stays in flow and they play in every single football game. But at the same time, you might be doing Emmett a lot more of a service by finding out who his depth pieces are going to be. Find out who his running back 2 is going to be, running back 3 is going to be. It gives him a lot less of a load. And also, it helps him lick his wounds a little bit from both Akron and Cincinnati and get him fully prepared for Michigan. So this is all purely hypothetical. He will play versus Houston Christian. But if you had your take, would you play him or would you not? Because I personally would not. Okay, I would allow Isaiah Mozee to go out there and potentially start and give him a quarter of football, then give Mekhi Nelson a quarter of football. We're going to win anyways. And Emmett's a great running back anyways. If you play Emmett versus Houston Christian, what's the positive? Okay, the only thing that could happen is him getting injured. He's not going to develop any further. Against Houston Christian, he's already a great running back. Okay, he should dominate against them. So what's the point? I don't know. That's my question, right? And again, feel free to disagree with me. I know I'm going to get people to disagree with me. I know I'm going to get people who do agree with me. I want to hear your thoughts down below. That's why, again, this is a very conversational channel. I want to hear your thoughts because this is what it's all about. And then a couple other recruiting things we need to discuss. First things first, I don't know if you saw that, but Dane Raiola, he's 3-0 with Buford High School right now. He's been playing well. Threw for 4 touchdowns, 15 for 23, and threw for just a little bit over 200 yards. So again, I haven't dove into the film just yet around Dayton, but again, I'm hearing a lot of good stuff around him, how he's performing. Kudos to Dayton. kudos. And hopefully he proves a lot of us wrong, because I'm of the belief that Dayton might not never play here, right? Because you have TJ, who's already going to be a great quarterback. You have Trey Taylor coming in. It's going to be very hard for Dayton to play meaningful football here. But I'm hoping he can continue to ball out and prove all of us wrong, because he's been looking really good. And then 2 recruiting nuggets I want to get to. This was just announced a couple hours ago. We talked about all the visitors this past weekend, or excuse me, this weekend. But it was announced that in the class of 26, Tyreek Green will be in town versus Houston Christian. He actually goes to high school with Dayton Raiola, so that's probably the reason why he's coming to town, is because maybe Dayton convinced him to visit Nebraska. But we're talking about a guy here 6 foot tall. He's about 200 pounds. He has over 50 offers nationally. I mean, we can just roll through this offer list, right? I mean, every offer you can imagine. All of them, right? Over 50 offers, including Nebraska, but he's checking out the Cornhuskers. He's been committed to Georgia for about 2 months now. So you just watch out for this name. The Huskers are kind of desperate in the secondary. You only have Danny Odom right now as a commit. He's somebody who can play corner and safety. He's incredibly fast, has that track speed. I'm not going to go to conclusions here. He's only visiting for the first time. My initial reaction when I saw him visit was, okay, he's visiting because Dayton probably convinced him to. But you never know. So just somebody I'd watch out for in the class of 26. He will be in town versus Houston Christian. And then it was just announced that the number 1 corner, in my opinion, in the class of 27, 5-star out of California, Juju Johnson, will be in town next weekend versus Michigan. So, of course, we'll do a whole recruiting weekend video next week. But just watch out for this name. He's somebody who already has a bunch of big-time offers. Nebraska, they've done a really good job early on here, but super fast, super physical, everything you'd imagine from a California corner. Huskers doing a good job in that state. And he was one of those guys who visited in June for that 77 tournament. Was really impressed and said, you know what, I probably wouldn't have visited Nebraska if it weren't for that. But it kind of opened his eyes to this program, this state, the fan base, and so much more. So just watch out for this name. Obviously, in the class 27, a little bit of ways away, but we're starting to get a lot of those guys commit. Like, players are committing sooner and sooner nowadays. Like, just the way it goes. So watch out for Juju Johnson, but somebody we need to have a conversation about, because he's not only one of Nebraska's biggest targets, but he's one of the biggest players in America who we need to land. All right, guys, let me know your thoughts down below about everything. Hope you guys are having a good day. I just want to make this disclaimer. I was kind of going back and forth whether I wanted to make a video today, because we know, obviously, all the events going on. Yesterday, the atrocity that happened in Utah. Obviously, this is the 24th anniversary of 9/11. My mission for you guys on this channel is to be an escape, right? Like, to be an escape. We talk purely football here. We don't get into politics. We don't even get into real life too much. I try to be very honest with you guys, try to be an escape. So everything that's going on in America right now, it's not okay, right? What happened in Utah was not okay. And I have a bunch of thoughts about it. I won't get into it, because, again, we keep this very focused on football. But I always want to tell you guys this. If you ever want to escape from anything, okay, and you want to talk purely ball, and you want to escape what's going on with the job, and what's going on with the kids, or what's going on in your life, because that's what I do. When I'm trying to escape all that, I just focus on football. And that's what I'm trying to have this channel be for you guys, because it's important for us to not ignore what's happening in real life. That's important. We should not ignore it. We should not be ignorant. But I also think it's healthy at times to completely shut off and say, you know what, I'm just going to get in my zone and for 10, 20 minutes, enjoy myself, watch a couple YouTube videos, enjoy something which I think, it's fun to me, which is a football team, right? So that's kind of my mission for this channel, is to have, all these things in real life are incredibly serious, but my mission is, whenever you guys are feeling like life is too overwhelming, we can just go back to the simplicity of sports, which is just supposed to bring us happiness in the first place, right? I think a lot of us get too caught up in sports, but again, it's just supposed to bring us happiness, right? Nebraska's supposed to bring us happiness, and that's what I want to bring to you guys. Just bring you happiness, bring you joy, bring you information, and that's really my mission for the channel. So hope that makes sense. Hope you guys have a great Thursday. Go Big Red, go Met Roll, and I'll see you in the next one.